Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in again. Today we're going to take a look at how you could turn a push fade into a push draw. So if you're a player that you feel like you're hitting your start lines and the ball is just hanging out to the right for a right-handed golfer or the left for a left-handed golfer, this could be a good video for you. We'll touch upon the pressure shift in transition, the thrust elements in the swing that are leading to those missed shots that you're having, and the face angle coming in. They're going to be the key components. We'll do all that with a simple rotational feel from the upper body in transition. So this worked well for one player that I gave a lesson to. Hopefully some of the bits here in this video will help you remove those misses from your game. As I mentioned, I have a player in mind that came in for a session recently, and I'm sure some of the tendencies that he had will really correlate to some players out there that get the similar ball flight, where that ball just hangs out to the right for a right-handed golfer instead of just turning over. So let's just go over this player's tendencies. And essentially, I'm going to focus first on, or I'm going to explain first the club delivery. So the player was getting the club coming in from a bit too steeper angle, too far out in front with the face open. So when the club gets steep, it's really hard to square the face. And especially if the face is open, obviously, more work needs to be done to get it square. So where the player was from transition into halfway down, it was almost like going to be very difficult anyway. So we had to work on the transition phase to get that club in a good spot and then encourage almost a different motion through the shot, because the player, if you've been here for a while, the brain's just used to making the corrections through the shot. And even if you make the correction from the top to halfway down, I mean, there still might be some adjusting then to encourage let's just say a better, cleaner, whatever you want to call it, improved move through the shot. Okay, so as far as the club being in not the best position, it was really responding to the player's body movement in transition. And I mentioned it in the introduction that we're going to touch upon pressure shift. So what I saw from a pressure shift standpoint, just in a very simple context, was a lot of pressure getting left really early. It didn't mean that the player moved a lot to their left. It's just a lot of pressure went left very early. And you can see, you may have saw then from face on, but when the player did that, you would start seeing a little bit of air under this trail heel. And that also matched up with, if you see that, then now my pelvis is moving closer to the ball. So I've got less space, and that less space pushes the club out in front into a steeper position, and the face responds by getting a little bit open as well there. Okay, so we went to improving the transition move, but there was one particular drill I'm going to show you shortly that really connected with the player, and I think it's a great example of how it's nice to be clear on the concepts of what needs to improve. So the pressure shift, then the reduced thrust, the sequencing would also have to improve, because when the play went left early, the lead shoulder would go with that pressure shift early on into the transition. So you have to be clear on the concepts. I like to keep those for each player, just 1, 2, 3. Okay, you have to improve the pressure shift, reduce the thrust, get the club in a better position with a 3 for this player. And then aside from the concepts, it's then having a feel for that player, and that's where it gets really unique golf, and that's where teaching's really interesting, because a player could have a feel that achieves those concepts that is just so far away from what you would think as a coach, but they'll be doing it, they'll be applying it, and they'll be really improving their swing. I hope that makes sense there, the difference between concepts and feels, and how feels are very individual. Okay, so for this player, what he came to for him was the feel for him was, I'm going to try not to knock the mic here, was that in backswing, if I make a backswing with the club across his chest, was the feeling of the rib cage really rotating in the initial stage of downswing, at the same time keeping that right heel down, the pressure into that right heel. All right, and then I'll show you that from down the line. So it's to the top, we're pushing into that right heel, and the player would get to about here, which felt about impact, and then just push off. Okay, so they would be the feels, like really pushing through that right heel, getting that shoulder in front and push off. So I think to him, one thing that really correlated and why that kind of worked for him was that if you get into a position like this halfway down and you have to work on squaring the face, the body is going to stall, so that right shoulder is going to be more this way and the foot is going to have more space under it that way. Okay, so I think for him, they were two big differences, pushing down through the heel and getting that right shoulder there. And one thing that I liked about it as a coach is typically when a player gets left too early and they want to get that club in a shallower position, you're going to see them add a lot of lateral bend, which makes it really hard then to cover the shot. You're going to essentially have to use your hands a lot through the shot. So I liked it because he had found a way to adjust that pressure getting left so early, but also allow that right side to cover it. The only real addition that we kind of added in, and it's something that you always have to be mindful of, is just the angle of the face coming down. So when the player would rehearse those feels in the swing, all we'd do is just make sure the face, the reference I gave him was get the face at this position, the same angle as your spine. Okay, so if his foot's down, his spine angle is going to be more this way as opposed to stood up. So heel down, sorry. And then he can get that club in that position there. And then from there, he can then work on that shoulder getting through the shot in that manner. Okay, so I've got the flight scope here. I'm going to try and go over the initial pattern and just show some of the numbers that would come from, like the club coming a little steeper and the face a little bit open. I'm just going to get it to wake up now, okay? And let's just see how the delivery would change. So you can have a go at this one. So the player was left early, club out in front, face open, and the player hit it pretty well. Just obviously proximities on the course were not where he wanted because he just couldn't get that ball to turn back onto his target. Okay, so I'm do my best kind of copy of the move. So that is probably as good as I can kind of emulate that pattern. I had a couple of goes at it there. Really isn't one that I found too easy to copy. However, you can see there on the numbers there that, you know, the face angle, which is FTT, face of the target, 5 degrees right. So the face is pretty open at impact. The other number I want you to look at is the vertical swing. How, because we've lost that space, the club's coming in much more this way, which makes it harder to square the face. So a couple of the elements we're talking about there, the face and the shaft being, you know, steeper, more vertical coming into the shot. Let's have a go now at some of the feels we were talking, pushing down to that right heel, getting that right shoulder to cover, and then getting the face more matching the spine there, coming in into the shot, and then pushing through it on the way through. Just having also a look at that dynamic loft on the previous one, 35.3. That's pretty high for an 8 iron. Okay, so let's hit this one here. Let's see if we can improve those numbers, get the vertical down, get the dynamic loft down, and then also get the face angle a little bit squarer. Oh, so I've pulled that one a touch there. The vertical is lower, the face is obviously more left there. The dynamic loft is a good amount lower as well. So all in all, pretty happy with that one. Just as I mentioned, I got the face a little bit too much turned down on that swing there. So, I mean, obviously though, much more powerful shot there, just because that dynamic's much lower there, and a little bit shallower as well with the angle of attack. So those were the 3 things that we focused on. First of all was keeping the pressure under that right heel, getting that right shoulder, getting that face down. Now remember, those were all individual, very specific to that player, but maybe some of those will help you with that particular tendency in your game as well.